Good evening and welcome to Wisdom Wednesdays. I'm your host and moderator, Carol. And with me, my friends, the panel, we have Selvi, Soraya, Kyra, Kamani, Fazana to log on, and Amina backstage. You know, today is our 15th show, 15th forum. And so, I mean, that's just, you know, I don't think any one of us really counted as to how many we had been doing. We started when we went into lockdown with curfew in Sri Lanka, and we did it every Wednesday so that we could bring to you, our viewers, some pearls of wisdom based on our experiences and also some of the work we do. And I think all of us, between the seven of us actually, we have so many different, shall I say, facets to ourselves in which we do different types of work. And so I hope you, the viewer, has found all of these forums that we've done informative. And it's something that will help you grow as well. I mean, that's the reason why we are doing this show, right? Hi, Fazana. So Fazana has joined us. Today, we talk about raising consciousness, moving forward with awareness. If you think about it, we live in a very difficult time, not just nationally, but globally. There's so many challenges that we have to face. As you all probably know, I'm also, apart from working with GBV cases back in the day, you know, I also work with woman-headed households, building wells and, you know, houses, but I also do stuff with environment and conservation. This is an extremely challenging time for the environment and conservation. This is the very lifeblood that gives us air and the ability to breathe and have a healthy country and clean water. And if we continue to destroy at the rate we are destroying, I really don't know where we are heading with this. We have so many abuse cases. There are so many violence against women and so much abuse against children and women, misogyny directed to women, unsafe places out in the public. I can only appeal to our leaders, if any of them watch this program. As I say, we continue to say we are non-political, but we cannot help but talk about issues that are social issues that matter to all of us. And it matters to our children and our children's children. And these very leaders that we have, their children live in this country, and their grandchildren will also have to live with whatever choices that they make and decisions they make today. So I can only appeal that moving forward, this sense of frustration, not just us on the panel, but, you know, fair-minded, thinking people feel outside there. And I can only say to you, today's conversation is extremely important because based on all these frustrations, with these frustrations, we also carry a lot of negativity around us. We also carry a burden of some kind of guilt that is not even necessarily attributed to us. And we also carry this sense of helplessness that we cannot change this course that we are going on that is extremely destructive nationally and worldwide. So Soraya, as you all know, Soraya is a lawyer, interfaith leader. Soraya works with women across the world. Soraya, we really need to discuss this at depth today, because I think we have to teach people how to cope during this time, and not just cope, but flourish during this time of abject down spiraling, I don't know, waves. I don't know how else to put it, right? So Soraya is going to talk about what you focus on longest becomes the strongest. That's a very profound statement, Soraya. Over to you.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Carol. Just want to tell Carol is a leader in sports. She mixes a world-recognized sportswoman. She mixes gender justice with sports. She has built over 15 homes for women-led households. And it's a joy and a privilege to be talking with you this morning. As usual, our Wisdom Wednesdays. You are so right, Carol. Today, I think we must all learn to think greater than how we feel. Because if we look around, there's so much brokenness. And if we persist on this brokenness, we are going to produce more brokenness. So our ability to think greater than how we feel is critical. You know, just yesterday, I mean, we all do this. We wake up in the morning, we go through our emails, we go check our FB posts, and then we respond, then we react. And this is a cycle that is very familiar to every one of us. I don't know how much time you spend, but I have to really watch myself when I do this, because I'm just getting sucked into a lot of things that I don't need to know. I don't need to be present for. For instance, like, I mean, we all in WhatsApp groups, you get so much of forwards. Just yesterday, my friend in Pakistan, he sent me a lot of stuff that was gloom and doom. And I just wrote to him and said, looks like lots of changes are happening. And it was a sweet release for me, myself, because I'm commenting here, commenting there. So this is work in progress, everybody who's listening. And in order for us to be mindful of what we are thinking and what we are embracing and what we are putting our energies into is very important. One of my favorite teachers, Satguru, says, your breath, your thought, and your awareness, use it in the right direction. And thoughts are critical, because you wake up in the morning, you've gone to sleep with several negative thoughts, because we recycle thoughts. And if you ask, science has now found out, for a day we have 75,000 thoughts. And what we do is we carry these thoughts, the negative ones particularly, and of these 75,000, over 70% is negative. So we go, we recycle, we wake up. So what is the purpose? You know, so being very mindful of what are you thinking, because thoughts become things. Is very critical. So we had to break that cycle where we wake up, the first thing that happens is a thought comes to us, right? Then we make a choice based on that thought, okay? Then there is a behavior that we engage in, we produce. And then there's an experience, and then there's an emotion. And if we continue to recycle and reproduce this formula without being mindful, we are nice dead people. So I think this program is all about, look around us. There's so much brokenness, but there's also so much beauty. Carol and I were talking yesterday, and we were talking about gratitude. You know, when my kids were little, I can't get them to do it now. We had a gratitude board in our home. And I gave them a sticky note, and they had to write 3 things they were grateful for. It was a task, but it is a beautiful thing to do, because when you're in a state of gratitude, you are in a higher level of emotion, and that can spring us into a better way of thinking and understanding. So in order to do that, let us never forget, we have a choice. We cannot say, oh, somebody said this, therefore I said this. You have a choice to create a vision or a memory for create a vision for the future. Let us not live in the past. So that is very important, and we have to be mindful, because brain is the largest organ, and it is a memory center, like a record player. You know, it just loves to play this thing. Okay, somebody said this, so being very mindful is what we are talking about, and that is how we can raise our consciousness. So stronger the emotion to the problem, more power you give to the problem. And you know, Carol, if something is affecting your work in terms of environmental issues, that gives you a lot of emotion, right? And the more you dwell on it, It's the same for me with conflict resolution, national unity, interfaith dialogue. So we have to be very clear what we bring to the problem is a solution. And if we react, we are human, we are going to react to stuff. The question we need to ask is, how long are we going to be in this state of reaction? Thank you.
So Soraya, I just want to ask you, I mean, what's the fine line between being apathetic? Maybe one of you can answer this question, you know. Is it apathy or is it conscious decision to acknowledge what is happening, change it if you can, and learn to move on if you can't? Is that the way we talk about raising consciousness? Soraya?
Yeah, I think what we need to do is not to feed into the negativity, not to feed in. But I'm not. We are now. When Mother Teresa is invited to a anti-war march, she never went. She said, "Invite me for a peace march." So I think it was Lord Buddha who said, one person working for peace is more powerful as opposed to 100 people opposing war. And
Correct.
This is the truth. So we have to build that conscious energy that is going to benefit us first, because until we change, we can't change others. And then that energy that will siphon through, that will channel towards our country.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I also wanted to add I wanted to also add something about where you make that choice, what influences the choice. And I read this profound line in a book called Conversations with God, where it talks about how, as humans, we either make choices based on fear or love. And a majority of us actually make decisions based on fear. And fear also includes ego, how people think of us, how people see us. And such a small minority make decisions based on love. So I feel, and that's influenced me a lot in my decision making. I think, you know, why am I making this decision? Am I thinking about what people will think of me, or am I basing it on love? And, you know, that I just wanted to share, that's something that can help that choosing process.
Right. Beautiful.
So, you know,
I also would like to say, just to say what Soraya, you absolutely touched the problem where it actually is a problem. That is, you know, what you resist, it persists. So what you do is, if there is something that is coming out of a lower consciousness, you don't meet it. What you do is you actually react with it or respond to it with a higher consciousness. And it cannot sustain itself when it is meeting that higher consciousness. It just dissolves. It just evaporates and it dies. So if we have a sort of a situation where we think, oh, we are helpless, this is so enormous, we can't face it. You don't deal with them or with that situation at that level. You deal with it at a higher level. And that situation itself evaporates. It doesn't exist, you know?
So, you know, people, I hear a lot of people who have a conscious statement that they make, oh, I hate what's going on, or I hate this person. The more and more you hear this, I detest these politicians, I hate what they are doing, whatever. So maybe what you're saying, Selvi, here is that maybe we should channel some, I don't know, good vibes towards them, you know, and hope that you know, that you would expect better from them. And you know, I made some conscious decisions. I used to wake up at 4:30 in the morning to do my, you know, yoga and stretch, and I would put the news on, whether it's the international news or local news, whatever is going, and it's all gloom and doom. And then I made a conscious decision to stop watching that. And whether it's the you know, the bana, early morning bana going on, there was one of the channels had a beautifully sung part of it, right? Or whether it's a Muslim prayer or whether it's a Christian prayer that's going on, I just put it on, just background sound. That's all it is. But that then shapes my mind for the rest of the day. Otherwise, you have these violent thoughts about everything that you hate happening. So maybe we have to make these conscious decisions. Maybe we can make a post-it and put it on our mirror with these thoughts, you know, what you resist persists, you know, for instance. And so that just a reminder, even to ourselves on this panel, those of you who are joining in, listen, none of this comes easy to us. You know, we are very passionate women who very strongly believe in what we talk about or do. And so for us also, it's always a work in progress. So you will be working with us as well to get to where we want to go in the state of mind that we want to achieve. Yeah?
Yes, and as women, as nurturers, this is our call. This is the crux of our program, you know. Let's create something new. When everybody talks about how divided we are, and it is true, it is a fact, but we're creating something beautiful.
So send some love to the people you want to hear, perhaps, and that might make them change. You know, there's another higher purpose in this universe than what you and I even imagine. I wake up in the morning and give thanks for something that day, and I've made it a habit to do that every morning, whether it's the sun, whether it's the rain, whether it's the birds chirping out there, or something that happened to me personally, rather than say, please, can I have this and can I have that? And I find that giving thanks, it brings nice things into your life. I'm not talking about Mercedes Benzes and whatever, but you know, you have joy in your life when you do that, right? We all go through hard times. We all have lived through, and I always say, look at the person next to you, their problems are greater than yours. So that's one of the ways I always try to tell myself, stop feeling sorry for yourself, because their problem is worse than yours. So Selvi. So as you know, Selvi is the CEO of Purnam Foundation. Selvi works with the war widows and women for their wage earning. Selvi does a lot of work. In fact, she's now on a fact-finding mission this month to see about nutrition and various other things that she can do to help on the estates. So Selvi will be talking about defining consciousness. Yeah, that's a good one, Selvi. Tell us something.
Thank you, Carol. I have totally enjoyed the conversation so far. Thank you, Soraya and Carol. Now, I'm also doing a lot of work, reading, research on spirituality, consciousness, and you know, and read a lot about people who have actually achieved consciousness, higher consciousness, and nirvana, like Buddha. So it's a favorite topic of mine, actually. So I'm really happy to speak about this. Now, consciousness is the higher mind, which the scientists call the neocortex. Now, where is it located? We normally think it's located in our head, in our brain, right? But no, it's not in the brain. Now, consciousness is considered to be an emergent phenomenon. It's not actually a thing, a thought. It's a phenomenon of the brain, but it is not in the brain. It is just like music, that when you start playing a recorder, the needle actually creates the music on the plate. But the music is not there. Music is out here, right? So the process of making it happens in the brain, but the music is outside and you can hear it just like that. Consciousness is not in the brain, but brain is the mechanism that creates the phenomenon of the consciousness. Now, when billions of neurons fire and communicate with each other, the combination of this enormous activity creates the phenomenon of consciousness. So more neurons are active, the higher your consciousness is. The state of being conscious is awareness of one's own existence, sensation, thoughts, surroundings, and the whole thing around you. right? People say when you have higher consciousness, you can see 360 degrees around you. And you know that lots of evolved and enlightened men have performed this several times. They have demonstrated it, that they can see around without even looking back. So we say, well, I'm conscious. Why? I am conscious because I can talk to you, I can see you, I can, feel everything. But you're not. You are actually conscious of only 2% of what is happening around you. Now that might shock you. Like for instance, you walk 10 feet, right? You hear lots of sounds. You smell about 15 smells. And you feel about 20 different emotions. And you have about, like Soraya was saying, every minute you're having 82 thoughts, 75 to 82 thoughts in your mind. Are you conscious of it, that you're thinking so many thoughts? Are you conscious of all the subsequent emotions that are coming because of these thoughts? You are not. So what's happening is that so many things are happening around you, within you. Like for instance, the blood is running in your veins. Are you conscious of it? You don't know. But a higher conscious person can feel the blood, can actually really feel the blood and even see the blood, That is the higher level of consciousness. And the digestion that's happening, are you conscious of it? It's happening on its own. So there are so many things that are happening around you, within you, and people and the environment, the plants, the animals, which you're not conscious of. So raising consciousness is to become aware of what is happening around you. Now, we are interacting with the universe through 4 mediums. One is the physical body through our senses. Second is our thoughts. Third is through our emotions. And the fourth is through our energy body. Now, if we don't see anything that is happening, how we are communicating via the energy body, that means you're missing out on 98% of what's happening around you. See, that's the crux of it. You are only looking at how you're interacting with your senses, with your body, with your talk, with your speech, but you're not looking at how you're interacting with the universe, with your thoughts, how you're interacting with the universe, with your emotions, how you're interacting with the universe, with your energies. The more you get into realizing what the energies are, how the energies are interacting with the universe, you raise your consciousness, because that is the ultimate. Now, for instance, if you take the life of Buddha, the one devotee came and said, pray, Lord, let me know. You perform so many miracles and so many things that human people cannot do. So tell me, who are you? What are you? Are you God? So Buddha says, no, I'm not God. Then he says, then are you a Deva? He says, no, I'm not Deva. Then are you from the netherworld, an Asura? So he says, no, I'm not even an Asura. Then he said, okay, in that case, are you a human being? He said, no, I'm not even a human being. Then he says, pray tell me, what are you? He says, I am total awareness from head to toe. I am totally aware of everything that's happening around me. And that is the way I am interacting with all of the universe, the whole of the universe. So this is what actually awareness is, right? And if you're totally aware of everything, right, the way you will deal with kind of situations that comes your way, you would be doing it like how Buddha did, No conflict was unsolvable for him. No atrocities, no tyrant would stand in front of him. Because he was communicating with these kings and with these people from his raised level of consciousness, and they always succumbed to him. He was always successful with the state power, the political power, the financial powers. Nothing was there to confront him in any way. He was successful everywhere. So this is what my point is, that we should actually relate to all our problems, global and local, through our higher raised consciousness. Another I'd like to finish with this very interesting example, is the story of Alexander the Great. Now, Alexander the Great, at the age of 15, he started becoming a warrior. And he actually conquered the whole world, the entire Persian Empire. He looted all their treasures. He killed, pillaged, plundered. And with this extreme military power, he entered India. And everybody on his way succumbed to him because of fear. Oh, if we fight him, we are going to be killed. So we succumb. So he became so arrogant and so egotistic that he came to India, and he heard about the yogis who live in the Himalayan forests. And they said, oh, there are yogis who are very powerful. He said, you mean more powerful than me? They said, yes, they say that. I don't know. So he said, okay, send a messenger, bring me a yogi. Let me see how powerful he is, you know. So this messenger goes to a yogi called Dandamis. And he's sitting alone in the middle of the forest, meditating. And he says, and not sitting actually, he was lying down on a bed of leaves. And this messenger goes to him and says, I have come from Alexander the Great, the conqueror of the world. He wants you to come and see him. So he didn't even get up, even raise his head. He said, I'm not interested. Tell him I'm not interested. So he said, but you'll be killed. He'll chop your head off. So he says, my head, he can only chop my head off. He can't chop me off. I'm eternal. So he can come and chop my head off if he likes. So this fellow goes back and reports it to Alexander. Alexander gets very annoyed. He said, who is this man who is challenging his power and his becoming the Alexander the Great, conquering the world? And then he comes to this forest and he says, you refused my invitation. And he's still lying down. He said, yes. And he said, I'm an emperor. I have come. Shouldn't you not stand up and welcome me? He said, no, I'm quite happy the way I am. You're a wanderer and you don't know where you're going. And you're wandering the whole world without knowing what you're doing and where you're going. So he gets very angry. And he said, look, come with me. I will give you gold. And I have got so much treasures pillaged from the Persian Empire. He says, I have no use for your gold. I have no use for your money. Besides, your gold is tainted with blood and I don't want it. And, you know, he couldn't do anything. He brought the sword to cut him out. He was just sitting there, nonchalant. There was no reaction, nothing. And when he saw this fearlessness, what happened to Alexander is that his entire success and the greatness that he had achieved by pillaging and war and torture and all the things that he did on his way became useless. There was this power with this man who had a higher consciousness, who had a higher awareness of everything that was happening around him. And he immediately got down from his horse, sat down with him, and he acknowledged his power. And, you know, there was a lot of conversation that took place between him and Dandamis. And when Alexander died in Babylon, he said to his generals, when you take my corpse away, put my empty hands, show my empty hands to the world, so that tell him that I have plundered and conquered this world, but I'm not taking anything with me. I'm going empty-handed. That is the power of transformation through higher consciousness. Even Alexander was transformed by the talking to these yogis in India. So we don't have to go that far, but we need to take that as a method through which we should communicate with people, who are acting with lower consciousness, who like war and plunder, who like greediness, who like to exploit, who likes everything. We just deal with them with higher consciousness, with understanding and love, and it will happen. I'm sure it will happen. Thank you.
Selvi, if these were bedtime stories, I would have been living in another world in my mind. I got so fascinated with what you were saying. For a moment, I forgot we were doing a forum here. But yeah, very extremely profound. And I love the examples you use, to tell this tale. Yeah, Fazana or Kamini, you want to quiz Selvi a little bit on what she said?
No, I just find it so, I just love the way Selvi articulated what the consciousness is, and also the scientific background. The first time I've ever heard it,
Exactly.
and I have nothing to quiz. I'm just absorbing everything she said.
A friend of mine sent in a message last week saying, I've become a Selvi groupie. I mean, literally, all of us are, because, when you listen to all that she has to say, it's like, yeah. I read so much, but I haven't read all of that, I don't even know how you find the time to absorb all this information.
Yeah, Carrie, just one more thing. I just want to add another thing. Like, I read in Hindu paper some time ago about a teacher in Dharmapuri in South India. He was so dedicated and committed to teaching. He transformed all the students that came in his way, and they had gone into higher consciousness, because he was a poor man driving back and forth by his cycle for 28 years. He continued it every day and came and taught the children, and he never missed one day. He was not absent one day, and this was reported in Hindu. See, that kind of commitment and kind of, total acceptance of his role, and then performing it to the full with integrity, it transformed the students, and they'd written a huge article on this. So we all can do this,
Exactly. I was just going to say. I was just going to say, because I was watching this documentary on Baba Ramdas, and literally he also came from an untouchable class. He was paralyzed. He had hearing in one of his ears, and they treated them so badly. The Maharajas, who carried out the pujas, etc., treated this family so badly. But this boy so believed that he can do something to change the world. And he didn't hate these guys who tortured this family. But instead, he went on his merry way doing what he had to do. And then, everything fell into place, he did an act of kindness, saving a boy. And then that boy's father actually helped him asked him, what do you want? He said, I want to go to school. And that's how if you actually do things with love and with purpose, I think you can transform, right? You can transform things. And it's very hard for us. I mean, Soraya and I laugh about this all the time, that we are too passionate and too full of energy about something bad that's going on that day, that we have to also take a step back and think differently, because it's for our betterment as well as betterment of the nation, right? So, let's go on to Fazana. Fazana, you're muted, so I'd like you to unmute yourself, please. So, as you all know, Fazana is a behavioral specialist, and she's going to talk about mindfulness, mindful living for youth, children, the home, and at the workspaces. Very important. Fazana?
Thank you, Carol. So taking on from Selvi, very interesting again, Selvi. For me, a simple definition of consciousness is the sensory awareness of the body, the self, and the world. It sounds very simple, but how do we engrave this in children and in teenagers and in adults? So I want to start with a practical exercise that we did together with Kyra. We had a mindfulness workshop for teenagers. Sounds impossible, but yes, we did it. And Kyra has moved from Sri Lanka back to the US, and I'm grateful that Kyra was in town, and we just, on the spur of the moment, decided to plan this out. And we had 12 teenagers, the ages of 15 to 17, who participated, a good mix of girls and boys. And I think they came with a lot of misconception that they're going to be seated for 3 days simply meditating. And I think some of them came because their parents told them to go. There they were. And what we did with them and how we transformed them at the end of 2 nights and 3 days was simply amazing. We had some very good facilitators, and with a good mix of talks, group work, and mindfulness exercises. At the end of it, the feedback we got, for example, there was a girl who said she had exam phobia, and now she knows how to deal with it. She has no issues now in facing exams, and most of them went back with the confidence of knowing that they can deal with whatever their life throws upon them. So this is what is important, I feel, because especially today with COVID and so on, you'll find mental issues becoming one of the prime areas to focus on, and suicide rates. Tomorrow, incidentally, is World Suicide Day. So, Sri Lanka also has a very high rate of suicides. So all this is kind of linked on how we deal with issues, how we are conscious and aware of situations, and how you can avoid even a drastic end to your life. If you talk of the workplace, right, we've all had experience of feeling scattered and perhaps a bit overwhelmed at work. Maybe you're inundated with projects and feel a sense of demotivation to complete assignments. So this is where mindfulness comes in, where we bring in our ability to stay focused, get flexible, and it's a way of reprogramming your mind to think in a more healthier, less stressful way. And it can help you cope with all these situations. So in the end, you will have decreased stress, enhanced ability to deal with situations, even to recover from an illness, and have decreased depressive symptoms and improve general health. So if we are conscious and we take our time and we are aware of situations, it doesn't matter what age you are, from kids to teenagers to adults to even people who are in retirement. They all have to deal with things every day, and I think this mindfulness will help them, and that is the practice that we have to develop. So I'm not going to talk about how you achieve mindfulness, because it is a practice, and it is, I would say, a path and a journey. And once you get onto that journey is when you will see the benefits of it. And I must say, I went on this journey almost 10 years ago, and being a single mom with twins, it's really helped me cope with life, work, balance life, home, kids, friends, and everything else that life throws at you. So, and now we have to deal with a lot of external situations, such as, weather conditions, corona, and God knows what in the future. So I honestly feel this needs to be introduced into a curriculum where kids could practice this as a daily basis. We do have religion in our curriculum, but this is a much more, I would say, coping mechanism, and much more deeper than just going into a practice of religion. It helps cope with your mind and become aware of it. So I really want to see how we can bring this into a curriculum for children. This is my motivation after the workshop we did with the teenagers. When we saw how beneficial it was, it would be so great to have this in the school syllabus. What do you think, ladies? Carol?
Yeah, Fazana, Sylvie was talking, I mean, we were talking earlier, and she was saying, we should at one time talk about education. And so mindfulness really should be in the curriculum. Meditation should be in the curriculum. A lot of these useless subjects and tests that young kids do should be taken out of the curriculum. Sex education. When you say sex education, people bristle at that. But actually sex education is about teaching your kids how to protect yourself and be safe in whatever you do. Right? And, even as parents, there's never been a perfect book on being a perfect parent. It was a case of trial and error for all of us. But the point is, if somebody actually brought in, into the school system, this meditation, selflessness, mindfulness, as part of their growing up, I mean, we would be in a calmer, saner, more conscious world, I'm sure.
I think there's a misconception, I think people think that kids won't absorb this. It's too deep or too beyond their realm. It's the perception that people have. And I think it's a total misconception. And Kyra would agree with me. This was proved because at the venue where we had these sessions, they usually have leadership programs for youth and so on by a reverend, a father. And he was amazed. He said, how are these kids going to stay here for 3 days practicing mindfulness? I don't think they can cope. And at the end of it, he gave me feedback saying, I walked past and saw them doing the walking meditation. I'm so impressed that you managed to do this with these children. So he, in fact, invited us to come and support him in some of the team programs that they do with schools where we can include this in the curriculum. So it's this perception that we have to break, and everyone will benefit from it afterwards.
We, as you all know, we talking about actually taking wisdom Wednesdays to another level. And some of this is moving to the districts in Sri Lanka and talking about some of these issues at the ground level. And, it's a big task. We have only so much time in our lives, but we have decided that that's what we need to do next. I mean, we had to look at the financial component of it, obviously, and then who's available to go out and do it. But, part of what we're talking about is also the message that we have to take out to the general public. Yeah.
I also have some experiences because I want to talk about Shanti Margam, my organization, and Shami would be able to also add to it. So the whole concept, the ultimate goal of Shanti Margam revolves around increasing your consciousness. It's about learning to deal with your emotional traumas. Also, of course, giving tools on how to increase your mindfulness, and that's what we do with the children. We do yoga, karate, meditation, but also we create a space. We've adapted curriculum into Sri Lanka where you talk about positive youth development, empathy, sympathy, being able to, your moral competencies and all that. And we see such amazing changes. It's really amazing. And I think children is the group we have to work with. Yeah. Because unless they are healed, unless they are full and they feel the metta, the higher consciousness, we don't have much faith. We don't have hope in the world. And also the way we work is something like I work in many places and I've seen, there's so much focus on the ultimate product or output. And the process though, like people are so miserable and stressed. And so for me, when I started Shanti Margam, I wanted it to focus also on the process as well as the output. So the way you do things, are you compassionate to yourself and to each other when you're handling the work? Are you empathetic? And we really do try to bring in those values in your day-to-day work. And for me, it's also knowing that the team who works at Shanti Margam will work in other places. So you spread it. you know, and I think that we really need to work on how do we achieve things, reconstructing that, you know, bringing that, those are the little places where you can raise your consciousness and work. Yeah, I just want to share that example.
As you all know, you know, Kamini is the CEO and founder of Shanti Margam. Sorry, Soraya, did you want to ask something?
I quickly want to add to something that Farzana said. First, I want to congratulate you, Farzana, for the committed work you do with youth. It's so powerful and meaningful. And you spoke about introducing mindfulness as a curriculum. I think there's a deliberate effort to leave such teachings from our youth, because what happens is our citizens are going to get smarter. They're going to begin to think in a creative way, and governments won't be able to handle that. So any effort any thoughts, any vision you have, my hope, wish is that you just go for that, because there's nothing more powerful than teaching mindfulness to our youth.
Send a lot of love their way, you know, I mean, that's what we are trying to talk about today. So Kamini, you know, Kamini is the CEO of Shanti Margam, and this was a dream she had, and she made it a reality to help kids and youth. Amazing, amazing work, guys. So Kamini will talk about the importance of the divine feminine in raising consciousness. Over to you, Kamini.
Thanks, Carol. So I think I'll be touching on a lot of the things that have been mentioned already, but I wanted to talk about why it is important to focus or bring out the divine feminine if we want to move towards a higher consciousness. We've spoken a bit about this before, but just to point out and to remind the audience that firstly, we both, men and women, have the feminine principles of the divine feminine. Men are taught to suppress these aspects, such as being emotional, being intuitive, nurturing, caring. Even among many women, it's been suppressed through patriarchy. And also women have masculine principles within them about being strong or protective. And as Soraya just said, if both genders, you know, in society wants us to be in a mold where we're not fully ourselves. So it's easier for us to be manipulated. So I wanted to just go deeper. What does it mean by why it is important that the divine feminine is celebrated or brought out more within ourselves if we want to achieve a higher consciousness? So firstly, as Selvi was talking about, it requires, like, being feminine means that we're more in touch with our emotions. We feel more, and women, instinctively we feel it. If men also bring out that emotion, that aspect in them, you're more emotional, and by seeing your emotions, feeling your emotions, then you can actually move on to healing whatever is not feeling right, and you can move towards healing the world as well. And women are also known to be strong healers, and when men also bring out that healing aspect of themselves, they are better healers as well. And you're guided. The divine feminine is very strong in the aspects of intuition, love, which are key aspects in driving this positive change that we want to see in the world today. Something else Sylvia spoke of, connecting with energy. Women are very good at connecting with energy, with the universe, with everything around them. And for that also, you need to be very deeply connected with your intuition. And you will often find that most energy healers are also women. The divine feminine also speaks of being empathetic, listening, understanding and caring more towards other people. And in this world, if everyone were more like that, how much peace there would be in the world. And it's no surprise that women ultimately are the highest when it comes to being caregivers within homes and within hospitals or institutions. And also another thing is that we don't really talk much about is the sexual energy that we have as women. We are creators. Our sexual energy is converted into creating life. And unfortunately, in this patriarchal society, it's been so suppressed, and so media has made it to look so like women are subservient sexual beings, only there to serve men. And whenever we express ourselves in a sexual manner, which may mean we're fully expressing ourselves, we should feel ashamed, we should feel humiliated. But that energy is so strong, and if we we understand how to use it well. And if women could be so comfortable in all of that, all of these things then would come together, and it helps increase the consciousness. Sadly, patriarchy has done such a fantastic job in suppressing all of these angers also among women. We're made to feel that if we are feeling, if we are healers, we're burnt at the stake, or we're too emotional. We should be ashamed if we dress in a way where we celebrate our sexuality. We shouldn't be leaders. We should be seen but not heard. Aging is so ridiculed among women. There's so much of, the market is full of, products for women to stop looking old, whereas aging should be celebrated. And, patriarchy has been so violent, not only on women's bodies and minds, but also on men's bodies and minds as well. But fortunately, it's changing. Fortunately, the world seems to be more hungry for this feminine energy, which is more uplifting and nurturing and positive and hopeful. In many ways, women are reclaiming their spaces through say the Me Too movement. We're speaking out against this whole abuse of power over us, and even Wisdom Wednesdays has been a way of us putting that feminine energy across. And it's no longer so weird for women to be energy healers. So I just wanted to, and also men are being more encouraged to connect with their divine feminine, to connect with their intuition, heal, and reject toxic masculinities and behaviors. So I wanted to just end with a beautiful quote from a book called The Women of Lemuria. This was a group of people that was there before the time of Atlantis. They were highly evolved individuals, and people channel some of the beings from that time. And there's this beautiful quote: "When the greatest masters of this planet walked the earth, you could see the feminine within their masculinity. They were soft, and you could see it in their eyes. They reflected that which came from their mother. Emulating the sweet spirit of the feminine of the planet is a secret to peace on earth. You know this. Don't limit yourself with the affirmations to come in the ceremonies you are about to do. Know that you can be anything. This is a simple message for the women who are the key to the softness of the planet." That's it from me for now.
Oh, beautiful, Kamini. Please post that on our Wisdom Wednesday page.
Sure.
And so that everybody can, go back and read it. Yeah. Kyra, I think we'll just move on at that. We've been, this is the 15th show that we are doing, the forum that we are doing, and all these words of wisdom from Kyra. And we've had all these comments about Kyra being this calm front, and not only from outside, even within ourselves, we always feel she brings the calmness to this group. But sadly, we have to wish Kyra adieu. She's going on to greener pastures and a different phase of her life. And we can only wish you the very best, Kyra. And we are going to miss you. Anytime you're available, just join us from wherever you are in the world. You will be warmly welcomed by all of us. And so Kyra is going to be talking about moving forward with metta. Give us some profound statements today that we can live with in your absence. Over to you.
Thank you, Carol. And thank you, everyone of my lovely wisdom women, Selvi and Farzana and Soraya and Kamini and Amina. This has been a real highlight of this year for me, being part of this panel and community that we've created together. I've really appreciated hearing everything you've shared this morning, and the stories and the emphasis on this power that comes from inside of us when we cultivate awareness, when we cultivate softness, which is part of awareness, is you have to soften in order to know what's happening around you. You have to let yourself be impacted by all this information And so that is a feminine thing, to be aware in a way. And so just to add to what Farzana was sharing about the teen retreat, one of the highlights for me was, so my co-teacher was Sahan Dharmatilika, wonderful mindfulness teacher. Also, he brings mindfulness to corporate groups in Sri Lanka. He gave them a challenge to sit still without moving for 15 minutes. This was on day 2. They'd had a full day of practice, so they were learning. And we didn't know how it would go over at all, because, there had been the usual like jitteriness and giggling and, looking around, waiting, when is it going to be over? But they really took this challenge to heart. And he watched them. I had my eyes closed, but he watched them. And they really did it. There was almost like no movement. Maybe just 1 or 2 people moved one time in the whole 15 minutes. And it was extraordinary. They came out of that practice so confident in themselves. Like they didn't know that they could do that. And, we got them into situations where they were more comfortable physically. So I don't think they were in physical pain. It was really about, could they focus their mind? Could they will that much, concentration for that long? And they just, after that, it was kind of a game changer. I think they all were like, this stuff works. And they talked about how calm they felt, that it wasn't actually a struggle when they just committed to sit still. Maybe the first few minutes were difficult, but then they really got pulled into this flow. So something really, kids, we cannot underestimate them. And when you give them challenges like that, it's extremely confidence building. So what I just want to kind of leave us with is, we started out this show talking about kind of the despair that people are experiencing right now, those in the environmental movement, those that are activists, just the difficult moment that we're in right now. And so I want to share just a brief story about an activist called A.J. Muste. And he's famous for the quote, "There is no way to peace. Peace is the way." Kamini was sharing about how important the process of getting to the outcome is, not sacrificing, the means for the ends. So this was how he lived his life. He was a Dutch activist and got kicked out of the Dutch Reformed Church in the United States for his pacifism and being a conscientious objector in World War I. But he basically kept his activism alive until his death in his 80s. Many people kind of burn out along the way, or once they're at the age of retirement, they leave the work. But he was the president of the Fellowship of Reconciliation. And after he retired in his mid-60s, that's when he went full on into organizing to end the war in Vietnam in the 60s. So there's a story of him when asked by a reporter what good it did for him to maintain a vigil outside a nuclear weapons base, Muste replied, "I don't do this to change the world. I do it to keep the world from changing me." Yeah. So it's like our practice, our this awareness Sylvie talked about, we want to be always aware what's in our minds, what's in our consciousness, and make choices so that we're really living in alignment with what's important to us. So he was active well, into his late age. So he wrote, "Joy and growth come from following our deepest impulses, our deepest volition, what we're here in this life to do. However foolish they may seem to some or dangerous, and even though the apparent outcome may be defeat, what seems like defeat right now, we don't really know if it's defeat. In 100 years and 200 years, we may know the real outcome of our actions. So we need to do our activism with that in mind, that it's not about the immediate result. And we want to tap into this deep well of energy and faith that allows us to keep showing up over and over, even if it looks like we're getting defeated over and over, because we know what we're doing is right and needs to be done, even if it's 100 years before the real, transformation comes. Maybe we're doing this for the future generations, for their, their grandchildren. We don't know. But if it's what we're called to do now, then we keep showing up to do it regardless. So I am just so pleased to have had the chance to be in this incredible company of noble people full of awareness. And I really bow in gratitude to each of you and all of our listeners. I will come back. I will be around. I won't disappear completely, but I won't be here every show. But thank you for all your love and support and deep wisdom and commitment to the empowerment of women and to the unification of all the peoples of Sri Lanka.
Thank you, Kyra. Thank you very much. I mean, it's been joyous having you with us and extremely calming as well. Maybe we need to practice speaking like Kyra with that calm intonation to bring another side to this whole forum. But thank you very much. You are much loved, and you will always be in our thoughts. Please join us in the future anytime you can. Soraya, can you please do the call to action? We run over a couple of minutes, but that's okay. Today is a meaningful day. Over to you.
So yes, thank you, Carol. Our whole purpose today was to elevate our consciousness. And as Kyra so beautifully said, in this world, we can get busy pointing fingers and asking others to be that change. But Gandhi also reminds us, be that change. So no matter what, continue with your path with this dedication. And there are many ways we can do this, but I want to leave a small practical way that I follow. One is observe the observer. Observe you first. Just look at what is coming out of your mouth. Could you have said it better? Look at what you are doing. Could you have done something in this situation? So something that's very critical, that a habit that I have developed, is to be able to observe the observer. And also, as we move along, if we want to bring real change, we have to change. And that begins with writing. Write something that is that needs to change in you. And then create a future. Write down the choices you need to make to create that future. And then clearly, we have to have a vision. Every one of us, we are blessed with so much incredible gifts, talents, and abilities. We have to wake up and ask ourselves, what can we do? And as we all gather today, and always we have been gathering, our final goal is to promote national unity and empower women to do that. So let us take little action, because the journey of 1,000 miles, they say, begin with one step. Some of us have taken that step. Some of us need to reinforce that step. Some of us need to change the steps. There's work. This is continued work. Thank you.
Thank you, Soraya. Thank you to everybody who's watching and joining in week after week with us. Continue to do so and continue to spread the word, because this is a movement that must keep plodding on till we gather much more momentum than we are doing now. And for all of you who watch, these are very profound forums that we need to give a lot of thought to, because that's how we change ourselves. Change the world, we start with ourselves. So please spread the word around about Wisdom Wednesdays. And from the panel here, remember, we are on again on the 23rd of this month. That's the 4th Wednesday of the month. Please join us then at 7 p.m. Good night. Take care of yourself and be mindful.